Hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine, and this is your Rattlecast for Tuesday, March 24th. We have a great guest, as we always do, but today it's Jimmy Pappas, who is the author of this spring's chapbook, Falling Off the Empire State Building. We're going to be joining him in just a second. But first, a little housekeeping. We're doing it a little different now. I got my new computer finally, which is exciting. And now we get to live stream simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube, which is really nice. So welcome to everybody who's actually watching live on Facebook for the first time. We also have a new open mic show that we're debuting. We debuted it on Sunday. Every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific, we're doing a Poet Respond open mic where everybody can share poems for that they submitted to Rattle's Poet Respond that week. I can only pick one or two poems every week. And we've been getting slammed. Actually, let me show you. I have, I can put this up on screen, I think, because I was wondering how many we've been getting. Here, check this out. This is, so this is the Poet Respond submissions on Submittable from starting at January 1st through yesterday. And the normal was like 100, 250, maybe 200 every week. And then as soon as we got quarantined, look at this. This looks like a coronavirus diagnoses here. We're up to 200 a day. So last week we had 800 submissions for Poets Respond. And I'm trying to, for forever, I've always just loved the experience of reading Poets Respond poems every week and learning about news stories. And, because I don't really watch the news, so I get to see about current events for the first time every time we do Poets Respond. So I sit there on that couch behind me and read poem after poem. And it's a really fun experience. Like, I love getting to learn about the world through poetry and see things that I missed. And I always felt bad that I couldn't publish more than one or two poems every week. So now this is a way to share the whole richness of what we've been getting for Poetry Respond. So it's a lot of fun. That's on Sundays. Now, as everybody comes in, let's see. There's a delay. Judy Mortner says there's a delay. Can you fix? I'm not sure what that would be. Everything seems to be working fine on my end. So hopefully it's working all right. Anyway, let's do our warm-up poem. And this is I always click the random button and play a little poem to get the ball rolling. And this time, it came up with The Glance by Jennifer Givhan. So here's Jennifer Givhan reading The Glance.
The Glance. Through window, through curtains wide, through singing after shower, through racial lines and statutory laws, through landscape pebbles off the complex path, through morning's rituals before the sun could rise, through glass pane while I dreamt in our bed, while our plump brown baby slept in his slatted crib, through slanted white light through window on your way to work. You heard a song, you heard a sweet song, and turned your head toward the naked girl. When the police knocked on our door, when the police came to our door, let me rephrase that. When the police, they claimed you climbed on a rock. They claimed it was a shower, the white girl's white mother. They claimed the window was the showers and the window 8 feet high. They claimed you carried ladders or were made of stilts or could form pebbles into whole rocks for climbing. They made signs they posted on our door. They made signs for better watch our backs. They made signs for night watch, for on guard, for dark man with afro. After we'd moved away, after we'd hired a lawyer and the case was dropped for lack of evidence, after there was no rock, after we'd climbed the jagged edges of any safe space we could in Koreatown, where I daily pushed our baby's stroller through the apartment's garden with koi ponds, past doorways that smelled of boiled fish, and our baby learned to name the things he saw. Nice tree, the oak with gall, the spindle wasp gall that leaves had formed like scar tissue around the wound, where insect larvae were eating their way through. The window of a neighbor's home, I looked up and watched a round man from the shower, letting towel slip I couldn't look away from this strange, intoxicating body in front of me. We know nothing happened after that. I took our boy home. I cooked us all dinner. We shut the blinds.
That was Jennifer Gifhan reading her poem, The Glance, from Rattle number 50. It was a Rattle Poetry Prize finalist. Jennifer Gifhan is a Mexican-American writer and activist from the southwestern desert. She's the author of 4 full-length collections of poetry now, most recently Roses Einstein from Camino del Sol poetry series just last year. You can find her at jennifergivhan.com. That's Jennifer, Givhn.com. And now let's bring in Jimmy Pappas. Jimmy Pappas is the author of this chapbook, like I mentioned, Falling Off the Empire State Building, which came to every subscriber. So you've probably already read this book if you're a Rattle subscriber. It was one of the 3 winners of last year's Rattle Chapbook Prize. Jimmy Pappas is... he served during the Vietnam War as an English language instructor training South Vietnamese soldiers. He received a BA in English at Bridgewater State University and an MA in English literature from Rivier University. His poems have been published in over 80 journals. The poem Bobby's Story, which we'll see, he's going to read, I think, a shorter version of Bobby's Story. It's a long poem. It was winner of the 2017 Rattle Poetry Prize Reader's Choice Award. So this is twice that Jimmy has won 2 of our biggest prizes. Other poems about veterans are included in Jimmy's first book, Scream Wounds, which just came out last year from A15 Press. He's also the vice president of the Poetry Society of New Hampshire and lives with his wife Barbara in the small town of Chichester, New Hampshire, where they enjoy the state's vibrant poetry culture. And here he is, Jimmy Pappas. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Good, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, it's great to see you, and thanks so much for joining us. I should say, It's nice to see you for the first time in person, but you are the record holder for most tears, I think, that you've generated in Rattle. I mean, the Bobby story and this chapbook are just such just moving kind of tearjerker type poems. So it's really cool to see you in person, and I hope you don't make me cry today.
Well, I hope I don't too. I've been practicing. I've been reading. When I read "Falling Off the Empire State Building," I'll be crying to myself and blowing my nose, and it's like. Yeah. But I think I practice so much. I think I should do better.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no.
And I may be in a cry. Yeah, sure.
Well, there's no shame in that, and we really do. Like, we kind of joke about this sometimes, but we have a rule in our editorial meetings that if anybody laughs out loud uncontrollably or cries, we just accept that poem automatically. Because if you have an emotional reaction, that's what you want to do with the poem. So don't worry about that. Well, you want to start us out with a poem?
Yes, Invitation on page 7.
Okay.
Invitation. I have just picked black raspberries in the rain. I popped them in my mouth right off the branches and let the small water droplets dissolve on my tongue. Now I have made pancakes with all organic ingredients, fresh eggs and non-fat milk from a local farmer, cinnamon, cloves, vanilla, nutmeg, and ginger. Blueberries I picked myself. Peach applesauce from Vermont. I topped them off with maple syrup that is so expensive I am the only one allowed to pour it so as not to waste any. We can sprinkle black raspberries over it all. Take a seat. I have a plate for each of you.
And that was Invitation from Jimmy Pappas' new chapbook from Rattle, Falling Off the Empire State Building. That's actually the little poem that's on the back cover because I hate blurbs. So we just put a little poem in the back, or an excerpt from a poem.
That was a great idea, I thought, putting it on the back cover.
Yeah, I read those blurbs and I think, I don't know, I don't want to say what I think, but I just think that they're ridiculous. But a poem, an excerpt from a poem is really helpful. So that's what I like to do with these chapbooks. Do you want to talk a little bit? I'm kind of curious about your history and how you got into poetry. I know you're a Vietnam veteran. You taught English to South Vietnamese soldiers during the Vietnam War. Right. How did you get into poetry though? Was it old? Did you start back then?
I was an English teacher in high school, and I taught a poetry writing class for many years, and we used to. I always had my students publish their own little chapbook. That was a final exam, publishing a chapbook. Actually, one of the requirements was an invitation poem like this.
Oh, yeah.
This is a new one. I had some ones I wrote back in the day for them, but it doesn't match up with that. I really love this one here. This is my favorite. So they all had to do a poem a day, and then they picked their best ones and put it into a book. And I was writing along with them. But it really wasn't until after I retired that I had this sudden burst of energy. And in about a 7 or 8 year period, I wrote about 400 poems. And I got involved in the Poetry Society of New Hampshire and other poets with them in some secret groups online. And it just, I just exploded with poetry for all those years. My original intent was to write a philosophy book when I retired. There's a story I told today with the poem that was published on Rattle about my dad. When my dad was dying, he had Parkinson's disease, and I was talking to him one day alone, and he was telling me this story about how he always had this dream of creating mythology cards. They'd be like baseball cards that you'd sell to kids the way baseball cards were, and on the front there might be a story like the Cyclops, say a picture. He'd draw the Cyclops, and on the back, he'd write a story about it. And he's telling me this thing about mythology cards, and it was so important to him. And I could see he regretted never doing it, that he never finished accomplishing that task. And then I said, well, I always wanted to write a book and get it published. And well, he said, make sure you do that. And I promised him I would do that. He's not around to see the book. Mm-hmm. I also lost a sister who's mentioned in the book. She was my biggest supporter as well. And I wish the two of them could be here to see that I did finally get that dream done. So,
yeah, not just a book, but 2 books in 1 year, pretty much. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's great. David Cook, and I should say, if anybody has any questions for Jimmy, just leave them on the chat window on YouTube. I'm trying to look at the Facebook window too, so you can leave them there. But YouTube's my primary source. And David Cook asks something that sort of relates. He says, I'm always curious what influence you see your parents having on your poetry, which sort of inspired you to put the book together. But what other influences do you have, or do you think your parents had on your poetry?
I don't think more of the stories are our life together. But, reading, I wrote a story recently about my reading history. And in my home, my parents didn't read to me. I didn't go to bed at night with a father reading me a story. That never happened. But what I did was they had a set of books, children's classics, in a bookcase in the World Book Encyclopedia. And I read all those children's classics. And I would be reading the World Book Encyclopedia and studying the world. And that's really how I got started in reading, and not necessarily poetry, but I liked literature. And eventually I'd be in school, I'd be reading all the literature, but I could never share it with my friends because they didn't read it. They didn't like literature. Boys, we were more channeled into math classes. Mm-hmm. And there I was reading our anthologies. I'd read the whole anthology. I couldn't wait to go home and read the things that weren't covered by the teacher. I just loved reading, and I'm not sure where that came from.
Were your parents readers? Did they read a lot?
No, not really. It wasn't that infant. I mean, a little bit, but not like that. My father, I think, would have liked me to be an engineer or be more involved in math. I have another little story. Once I was reading Shakespeare in my room, and a cousin saw me, and she went and told my best friend. And the next day, my friend went, "You read Shakespeare?" Just like that. And I said, well, a little bit. I don't know, sometime. And because it was like something I hid away. I could never go and share with friends until college. When I got to college, and I said, wow, there are other guys read literature. I can talk about literature. That's pretty cool. But I had none of that in high school with the kids I hung around with.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it felt the same way to me too. I really liked writing as a sort of a secret thing, and then you get to college and there's actually creative writing classes, which is a lot of fun.
Right.
I don't know if were you planning on reading The Wake Up Call? Is it on your list? Because David suggested you read that.
Sure.
And while you start that, I forgot to turn the lights on, so I'm going to sneak off and turn the lights on because it's light out now. But
That's on page 12, and it's also from Poetry Breakfast, I should mention that.
Okay.
That was actually my first published poem after I retired. The Wake-Up Call. When it was time to wake me up to go fishing, he stood at the end of the bed and held my foot in his hands as if it were a piece of crystal, the way he must have done when I was a baby. But I was too tired to wake up and too young to understand how much he needed me to be his son. And that is also a true story. My dad waking me up to go fishing. We lost you there for a second. My dad waking me up to go fishing, and I just didn't do it. And I remember that moment, and I regretted it because I knew this is what fathers and sons should do. I should have just got out of bed and went with my dad fishing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what he needed.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to read another one?
Sure.
Okay.
The Gray Man is on page 21. The Gray Man. Part 1, The Visit. I visited my father one Saturday at the nursing home where we had put him against his will because he had become too much work for us. He who had worked hard all of his life, worked hard to make other people rich, richer than he could ever hope to be. He was a gray man now, like a character in an Ingmar Bergman movie. So I looked for the translation of what this all meant, but it got lost in the white sheets. And I tried to figure it all out by myself. But I too got lost in the white sheets that covered his sleeping body. I decided not to wake him, this gray man who had once been a stark man, who had once been a man filled with action and life. And I sat in a chair by his side, sat and looked down at my gray man, my gray child, I who had become the father, and he who had become the child. Our role reversals making the movie even more complex, more difficult to translate. And I looked again at the white sheets and saw only white sheets that smelled of shit and piss. There were no English words, words that I could understand, words that could explain all of this, words that could explain him, words that could explain me, words that could explain all of the things that have happened between us, words that could explain why we behaved the way we did. Even Bergman was never fully understandable. Even his words got lost in white shirts and a white background. But at least he had words. At least there was an attempt at translation. Here, there was nothing. Only my gray man, my gray child, lying there, sleeping on his back, waiting for my arrival. Part 2, an earlier incident. One day I approached the nurse at the desk. I'd like to take my dad out for an ice cream cone. The nurse responded, I'm sorry, but no. I'm worried about him. He could fall out of the car or get hurt in some way. For a few seconds, I could not speak. I wanted to say, like Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry, go ahead, make my day. Tell me I can't take my father out for an ice cream. I wanted to say, like Jack Nicholson in 5 Easy Pieces, why don't we just take this sign-out sheet and stuff it between your legs? And I wanted to say, like Clark Gable in Gone with the Wind, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I'm taking him out for an ice cream cone. But what I really wanted to say was, what's the worst that could happen to him? He could die? Look at him. He's dying now. It doesn't fucking matter. He just wants an ice cream cone with his son. Instead, I said nothing. I acted the way my gray man taught me to act. Respect authority and do what I'm told. So I did what I was told. Part 3, the gray man's arrival. There is something, something I want to tell you. No, I need to tell you about his arrival here. He did not want to come. He screamed when he arrived. He screamed when they put him in his room. He screamed and begged us to please not do this to him. But we, his children, did it anyway. Did it and turned our backs on him, both literally and figuratively. We turned our backs on this gray man. We left him there. And now I beg him, in my mind only, to forgive me. But that is not what I wanted to tell you about his arrival. What I wanted to tell you, what I really wanted to tell you, is that I was busy, so I was not there. No, not I. Part 4, another earlier incident of little importance. I waited so long for this moment. I wanted to tell him that I loved him, so I waited and waited, and finally I said it. I love you, Dad. And he said nothing. Part 5, the grand finale. For my own selfish reasons, I did not wake him on my visit. I waited until he woke up on his own. I sat there for almost an hour, reliving our lives together, while studying the sheets, and when he finally woke up, he smiled at me. My gray man smiled at me.
That was The Gray Man from Jimmy Pappas's new chapbook that just came out from Rattle, and it was also the poem of the day today on rattle.com. Yeah, thanks so much for reading that, Jimmy. It's one of those poems before, I guess I'd have to say before Trump. People always ask, what is the topic people seem to be writing the most about? And there's this experience that so many people are dealing with right now because of the demographics and the way they spread of taking care of their parents in old age and in nursing homes and all that. And that seems like one of the definitive poems to me for going through that experience that so many people are going through, right now. So thanks so much.
Yes, and they can even be beside the bedside, and now even too. They're saying hello from out the window. And all.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking for sure.
Really?
Yeah. About that poem, Judy Mortner, just before you even started reading it, she happened to mention, she says, was writing The Gray Man cathartic for you? It seemed you were able to express some of what it's like to lose a parent, a huge thing that's traumatic and hard to express. Was it cathartic?
Yes, I think so. I think I really like the poem. I like long poems. In fact, I'm doing a workshop on long poems. Part 1 was really the poem itself at one time, but then I wanted to do more with it, to say more. And so I added the other 3 parts and brought in that, story about trying to say I love you. It's just not something I did as a young man. We didn't say I love you. I don't say I love you to my friends. There's a line in Bobby's story, the Vietnam poem, where and I'll read that later, but where somebody tells me, I know how much you love them. I don't say I love you to my friends, but it really moved me. And I couldn't read that. When I tried reading that line in public, a couple of times, I just couldn't, I'd always get emotional at that point. What a great way to express it, to say I love you to a friend. There's so many different kinds of love. And so that whole idea of trying to say I love you to someone, I think is very moving now. It's special for me. I don't just toss it around. Mm-hmm. And whereas some people maybe just say it all the time. For me, it's a special thing.
Yeah. You mentioned doing a workshop on long poems.
Right.
Do you have any? You do write long poems, and really well. Do you have any advice? Somebody, Amelio Puerta mentioned this has the flair of a short story or novel. This poem, and Bobby's story is the same kind of way. Do you have any advice for people trying to write longer poems? It's something I've never personally been able to do. I sort of have a trajectory and like a momentum a poem has, and then it's like spent, and then it's 2 pages at the most. What advice do you have for writing long poems?
Well, I think don't always be stuck in that one page. I think it was Stephen Dunn who said that. I believe if I get it right, he said he found himself only writing 1 page and a half poems, and he wanted to go to a longer poem. One little tip, it's very simple, and I'll take it away with him, is use sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Think of 13 ways of looking at a blackbird, but don't do it like that. Go into the past, into the future, tell a little story here. Combine maybe some poems that based on the same topic. I think it's good to do a person. If you want to write about your mom or your dad or a grandmother, whatever, a Vietnam veteran here like I did, those sections give a whole picture. And I think 3 things that define us are what we say, what we do, and what other people say about us. So that's in Bobby's story, a lot of that. What you say, what you do, what other people say about us. And then you're created. There's a version of you that may not be the real version. But out there, people hear the name Jimmy Pappas, and they have a version of who I am based on what I said, what I've done, what other people have told them about me. Mm-hmm. And that's Jimmy to them. So those are a couple of tips here. The sections, past and present and future. I actually wrote out a list of 5 pages so far of tips on that. I don't have it with me, but for my work, and the workshop got canceled because of what's been happening.
Yeah.
So
disappointing. So that was a New Hampshire, Poetry Society workshop or something like that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was be free to any member of the Poetry Society.
Yeah.
If I could give another little tip, sometimes I find someone may have a passage, and in that passage is this one line that's just not explained enough. Pull it out and say a lot about that little thing, that small moment. Tell more about a small moment. Mm-hmm. And that expands that part a little bit. And then there's all these unnecessary words, I think, that maybe irrelated. And I found that in a few people's poems where I was critiquing them. And so that's a tip I use, and I bring samples of poems where I saw that, where I noticed that.
Yeah, those are good piece of, and you can see both of those, tips taking place in Bobby's story and in The Gray Man too. Were you planning on reading the title poem, "Falling Off the Empire State Building"?
No, I thought you wanted me to only read the ones that weren't published.
No, you can read whatever you want. No, that was just for sharing online. But Perfectly K asked, what does the poem "Falling Off the Empire State Building" mean to you, and why did you choose that as the title of the chapbook?
Well, I love the title. I'm very happy with my titles on the book covers. The 2 books I have. It's just a great metaphor, I think. And let me read the poem, and I can share a little bit about why I picked. So that's page 14. Falling Off the Empire State Building. I shared a story with my students about how construction workers would fall off the Empire State Building while another line of workers, desperate for jobs, waited to take their place. Until one day I learned it was all an urban legend, and I laughed, thinking about all those young people passing down a lie and telling others it must be true because my English teacher told me so. Then I thought about the day my father took me to the factory where he worked to demonstrate what he did every day. But I could only see this handsome man, an artist whose signature swirled across a page like a lost Van Gogh painting, working as a tool and die maker, out of place with everyone in there. He would have been one of those workers who stood in line waiting for a job just to feed his family, then balancing on a metal beam high above the earth while trying desperately not to fall. I think of this as a working class book. So that idea of workers who would, sacrifice their life or risk their life to do a job. And lots of workers do that. They work in coal mines and whatever, or they give up their enjoyment in life to do a very hard job they may not even care about just to feed their family. And my mom and dad worked hard to raise me. And also we should include, of course, raising kids. In those days, it was often the mother. But that hard work that people do. So I think of this as a working class book, geared to working class readers. And most of it, I think, is pretty accessible and easy to understand for the most part, which I think is part of that. I'm glad that it is.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I wanted to ask about is your style, which is so accessible and straightforward. Which is really I think of certain poets as sort of classic rattle poets, and you're one of those, which is people like Tony Glogler, other people like that who tell stories really straight, without a lot of flair and without a lot of like it's the story that matters, and the accessibility and the directness of it, the honesty. Is there a reason that you sort of have that style, and are there favorite poets of yours that you sort of model that after?
I like the idea of celebrating life, and that common expression, show don't tell, right? Advice for writers. Well, sometimes people misunderstand that telling a fact is okay, telling exactly what happened. The show part is then people can read that and judge for themselves about me, my dad, whatever, a Vietnam veteran. They're making those determinations. I try to keep opinions out in fewer adjectives, and where I describe something in that way. It's more the fact of the motion, the verb, a picture in your mind so you can see it. And I love cutting it down to bare essentials. One of the first poets I modeled on was Stephen Crane. When I was young, I loved Stephen Crane. He's not famous as a poet, and I love his poetry. I recommend it to anybody out there. Go and read the poetry of Stephen Crane. Have you ever read Stephen Crane's poetry much?
Not for a long time, but yeah, back when I was exploring all the poets and not just reading submissions.
Yeah, he was one of the first that I modeled on. I also like to write different kinds of poetry. So I have humor, other things. I think it's a challenge to keep writing different kinds of poetry. I also want to write more poems that don't make sense or that are very difficult and challenging. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people put those down, and I don't. I think there are many kinds of poetry, and it's okay to do that. And I want to do some successful ones like that as well. That really do not make much sense, but if you look at them, they do. If you think about it a bit, I want to, send some ideas out there through that difficult poem.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody had another question. Renee A asked about the line lengths. How do you decide on line lengths? Which is something I noticed reading your book too. There's a very specific reason that you do shorter lines occasionally. But how do you decide on line lengths? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think in the Vietnam veteran poems, I wanted it to be a little like a natural speech. When I'm talking to my veteran friends, we often talk in short sentences and little bursts of phrases and all connected. So I like that. It felt more like natural speech. And then I have my mini Jimmy poems which are short poems like Closed Coffin. I did that, I want to thank a lot of people that wrote to me and tried to find me. I'm not online very much. I'm not on Facebook and all that. But they tried to reach out to me and tell them the poems that meant a lot to them. One lady said how she wanted to teach my poems in class on line length. That was her exact comment. She's and she asked if she could print some of my poems. I said, sure, go ahead. And it was great that she asked me. I mean, she could have done it. I would have never known, but she did it the right way. So it varies. And maybe I could read that poem as an example of a mini Jimmy poem, right? A very short poem. That's on page 19.
Yeah, why don't you read that? And then do you want to read maybe Bobby's story to get into that subject too?
Sure.
Okay.
Closed Coffin. We cannot tell if we are at our mother's head or at her feet. Let us bow down. Now, there's a poem that was originally a long poem, more to the story, and then I cut it down just to that moment of, I don't know if this is her head or her feet, and I'm saying farewell to my mom, and we were going to have a discussion about it. We didn't know what to do. It was almost going to be a humorous poem because I had this urge to laugh there before my mother's coffin as we're bidding our final farewell. And fortunately, I didn't. And then that let us bow down. I'm not sure where that came from, but when we kneeled there, I felt it was a bowing. It was a respect, a love for what she had done all her life for us, raising us. And so I wanted to have that religious tone. So I cut it down to the bare essentials there in that poem, rather than the longer one that I originally had.
How long was the original? Just out of curiosity? Was it?
Well, this story about almost laughing, and I would say it'd be a page, 2 pages, maybe page and a half,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the the Ezra Pound, the petals on a wet black bough. That was originally a page and a half too, I think.
Right.
Do you want to read? What's that?
Yeah. Before also, like I was mentioning, comments I got from people. Here's I get a long letter from this one guy from Georgia. I just want to read you the last sentence because it's pretty cool, I think. He concludes with, "There is a truth, though. Poetry travels. Yours has come my way, and I am very pleased to have it. Poetry travels." Isn't that a line?
That is, yeah.
And he write that card to me and send it from Georgia.
Yeah. That's exactly what I always hope to hear. I mean, I hope poetry does travel, which is why we do this. So it's really cool to hear. Anytime you get feedback from people, that's just always the greatest kind of reward.
Yeah, it's just a simple, nice gesture to do. And I also want to thank, before I read Bobby's story, I want to thank my artists like Shikiva Hashemi. Great cover on this book, Falling Off the Empire State Building, and for Screen Wounds of Madeline Matoja. Right there he is. And she drew throughout the book, so I think that's pretty cool. I have these artists helping me. They added to them. So this is Bobby's story.
Yeah.
This is the shortened version.
Jimmy, you're kind of breaking up here and getting really small. Why don't you hang on a second? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, you started breaking up and don't have very much bandwidth. Let me hang up and just call you right back and see if that restores it. Let's see. We'll see if we can get Jimmy back. Because it faded very quickly. Hey, Jimmy, are you back?
I am.
Okay, well, your voice sounds much better, and your video is better too. Okay, so something happened, and people just started streaming Netflix in your town or something.
I flashed my paper in front of the microphone. I don't know if that happened.
No, it was just the internet connection. I think it's probably became the time where everybody is like literally sitting on the couch watching Netflix in your town, and so there's a little less connectivity. But the connection's better now. So what were you saying about the cover of Scream Wounds? Is the last thing we got.
Well, Madeline Matojan did the drawings, and I wanted to thank her. She has a drawing of a wounded soldier. A scream wound is a wound that makes you want to scream. And when I heard that from a Marine, that's my title poem in here, I said, that's it. That's the metaphor for the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
A wound that makes me want to scream, makes me want to cry, really. This great sadness I feel for, as a teacher there, my students, the soldiers, the people, the civilians I work with, the families, what they went through, the collapse, what that must have been like, the combat, the whole thing. And I hope everything's okay there now. And I hope they made it out okay or survived okay. I know a lot of the people I trained probably went into re-education camps. They were boat people. I know when I saw boat people, I know those are my friends there, Vietnamese friends on that boat. I knew that. And so it's a wound that makes me want to scream or cry. For me, it'd be a crying wound.
Yeah.
But that is a great metaphor. I love that title.
That is, yeah. I'm glad you said that because I didn't get a chance to read that book. I don't have a copy, but I was wondering about what that title meant to you. So thanks for sharing that. And I keep thinking too about how being like right now during the coronavirus outbreaks and stuff like that being a nurse or being a doctor on the front lines of a hospital must be a very similar experience.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, they're heroes now, really. What they're doing, they're really, everybody's noticing that, giving their time, risking their lives. They're getting infected as well. I know they don't all die, but still they're in there in the front lines dealing with this. So pretty incredible.
Yeah. Just really quick, Perfectly K says that she loves the book Scream Wounds. So if anybody enjoyed the chapbook, falling off the Empire State Building, make sure to pick up a copy of Scream Wounds as well. If you liked Jimmy's poetry, you'll definitely like that too.
Bobby's story?
Yeah. Do you want to read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part 1, Bobby, food. I was a jungle fighter. We had to eat cold food because we couldn't have fires or we would give away our location. I liked to eat snakes. They tasted pretty good. I ate insects, spiders, centipedes, grasshoppers, anything I could find to survive. Here's what I do. I take my pot, put in a centipede and lots of grasshoppers. Then I mash it all together, cover it with Tabasco sauce, close my eyes, and pretend I was eating something else. The hot sauce took my mind off what I was doing. It was like eating Mexican food. Part 3, Bobby, the jungle fighter. I fought in the Ashaw Valley, the site of the last major Marine operation of the entire war, so I made very few friends. I didn't need to think about crap like them dying on me. Sometimes I volunteered to support the doctors who did not carry guns. I kept lookout while this one medic helped a family in a village when a mortar shell landed right on a hooch, killing the whole family and the doctor. But I only got blown 20 feet down the road and couldn't do nothing to save them. I joined the Marines for all the right reasons, but when I came back, I was pissed off for quite a long while. People called me a baby killer. They thought they knew more about Vietnam than I did because of what they saw on TV. So I just took the insults and said, screw you. Part 7, Bobby, the roofer. I went to the VA for help. The lady asked me what I could do. I told her, I got a 5th grade education. I fought in the jungles for the Marines. Then I spent 39 years as a roofer before I fell off a roof and broke my back. You tell me, what do you think I can do? Part 13, Bobby, Armani, the comfort dog. Armani's my friend, my only one. He's family to me. Look at him. He's got his head on my foot. You put on his vest and he becomes a comfort dog. He begins working. Take it off and he's a regular dog again. You know, he can take clothes out of the dryer, press buttons on the elevator for me. It's incredible what he can do. We even made him a member of the group, and he's a great chick magnet. Part 16. I receive a phone call about Bobby dying. I got some bad news I need to share. Bobby's in Boston at Brigham and Women's Hospital. His family's going in today, and the doctors are going to take him off life support. I know you loved him. That's why I called you personally to let you know. Part 17. The final words at Bobby's funeral. When I was having problems, my wife told me to either get help or get out. I love my wife, so I went to the VA to find assistance. One of the first guys I met was Bobby. He's the only guy who can say I love you to my wife. He used to help me pick up flowers for all of the veterans' funerals. This morning, the lady at the flower shop asked me, "Hey, where's your friend?" I told her, "These flowers are for him." Rest in peace, Bobby. And I promised him before he died I'd make him famous in a poem, and I did it. It was a risky promise. But
that definitely was, but that's one of the most read poems we've had, and won the Reader's Choice Award. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And for everybody, that was a truncated version of Bobby's story. To read the whole thing, just type in rattle.com and search for Bobby's story. It'll come right up, or Google it. Do you want to read another poem? I think we have Scream Wounds, the title poem for your book.
Scream Wounds would be, that would be good. And this is in honor of the soldiers who went out humping the boonies, in particular a Marine who that I got this story from listening to him talking about this once, and not only him, but several other people are involved in this. So what they had to do, it's like that falling off the Empire State Building story. It's just incredible.
What does it mean?
Scream
What
wounds.
does humping the boonies mean? I heard you mention that before.
Walking out in the jungle and looking for enemy soldiers to do battle with, and then you set up ambushes. But sometimes you walk into their ambushes.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never had to do that,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just trying to get it from them, and I can only, imagine what that must have been like. And after I read this, you'll see there's one part in here that I just want to put you in that spot and see how you would feel as a 19 or 20-year-old kid.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Scream wounds. See that guy over there? He's a hero. He saved 4 people from a minuet ambush and got shot 4 times doing it. What's a minuet ambush? Let me explain. First, you need to know there are 4 kinds of ambushes. There's a basic line ambush where you wait in a row for the enemy to approach you. Then there's the point ambush. The point man is out front. The ambush is set up high and low. If you're across from each other, you just end up shooting each other. The VCs shoot a point man down low. In the knee is good. That's called a scream wound. I don't care how tough you are. When you get shot in the knee, you scream. Americans have this idea about no man left behind. So they rush to help out the wounded soldier screaming. And they run right into an ambush. They shoot one man and then get 10 others trying to rescue him. I had my point man carry a football mouthpiece with him. I told him to drop and roll if he got hit and bite on the mouthpiece to take the pain away. It confused a VC if there was no scream. But you got to go hide. I tell my man, we'll come and get you if we can. The third kind of ambush is an L ambush. It's shaped like the letter L. Here, I'll draw it for you in the dirt. The one chance you have in this one is to take out the machine gun at the point of the L. Now, in a minuet ambush, you take this L, flip it over, and make a mirror image of the L on the other side, just like this. So what happens when you go into this L here? You run to the opposite L. You see? It's like a dance. Everyone in it is dancing around because they're getting shot. That usually makes for total casualties. So that guy over there, he rescued 4 men from the minuet ambush. And that's why he's a hero.
Wow, that's a great poem. And is that a shorter version too of that poem?
I cut it down a bit.
But yeah.
Not too much.
Yeah. So
But
go ahead.
the line I want to go back to is that football mouthpiece. Now, you're 20 years old, and I say, okay, Tim, you're going to be the point man today. You take this mouthpiece, and if you get wounded, you bite on it and roll and hide. And if we can, we'll come and rescue. And you'd probably do it. I mean, that was the thing. We did what we were told. You do what you're told, and especially when you're that young. It's just that I can't grasp that.
No.
And it's so incredible.
Yeah, me neither. It's just so foreign to my world, that and so many people were forced to go and do that.
And do that.
Yeah. Right? The other line that I love that all of a sudden you say out of nowhere, sort of, here, I'll draw it for you in the dirt, which just from a craft standpoint puts you right in the moment, and you just live there, with, just hearing the story on another level, I think. It's a really powerful poem.
Yeah, I like that line in there too. Because he was drawing in the dirt for me too.
Yeah. Do you work with veteran poets too? Do you do workshops and stuff like that?
No, I haven't done that. I wouldn't mind doing it sometime, but I don't really know of any veteran poets right now that want to write very much. So, haven't had a chance to do that. Yeah. So, but I would like to.
Yeah. So Kim Tedra says she remembers voting for Bobby's story for the Reader's Choice Awards. You got one of your voters here.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim. Let's see if there's any. Now you have multiple screens to check for questions. Ellen McCarthy over on Facebook says regret is a common theme. a regret for what wasn't done or said. Do you feel like poetry is a way to address regret? Is that one of the things that poetry does?
It can. When people use that word regret, I said, yeah, I guess there is regret here. Like I didn't wake up when my father was trying to wake me up to go fishing. But I didn't think of it as regret, but I guess it is. And yes, I think it's cathartic, like someone asked before. And poetry is absolutely a great way to amend something that happened in the past. Okay, I was wrong. Here's what I should have done, but I was too young to know. Mm-hmm. Or I was too stupid to know, or whatever the word is.
Yeah.
And you express it in your poem, mm-hmm. and I hope to never do it again. Kierkegaard said something about how we live forward, but we learn backwards. So we're learning from the past, but hopefully we can correct it in the future. Right? But we're going forward. It's too late to correct those mistakes.
Yeah. You mentioned, I can't remember if it was before we went live or if it was during the show, but you mentioned you were a philosophy interested in writing a philosophy book. You're a philosophy teacher. What was your philosophy book going to be about? And are you still working on it?
Well, no, I gave up on that. It was more about teaching philosophy. I had a philosophy class in high school, and I know there'll be some of my students who'll be coming to this video someday, I think, and they'll remember me. And that is the greatest accomplishment of my life. No doubt about it. And that class was incredible. It was popular. We had fun. We learned. We talked. I had like one rule: I'm never going to send anybody to the office. So people are free to speak. We went over the history of philosophy. We had special days, like as an example, we had Man Day, and then the next day we'd have Woman Day, and then we'd have Man and Woman Day. So on Man Day, all the boys went to the front and talked about what it was like to be a man. On Woman Day, all the girls went to the front and talked about being a woman, the problems they face in life. And so I had these special days like that. They were just incredible. So we had Swearing Day, where we talked about why people swear, and no one swore. I would say, well, I won't send you to the office, but who's going to get in trouble if you start saying a lot of swears and it gets out there? Somebody's going to blame me, right? So they didn't swear. I mean, it was incredible. They respected what I was letting them do.
Yeah.
And they could all give their opinions about swearing. I told them, go and listen. Why are people swearing? What's the big deal? What are they doing out there? And why does that word have an effect on people?
Yeah, that's one thing that poets never really talk about, and I'm always interested in too, because there's sort of a way that very few words are more powerful than swear words, and why do you think that is? And how does that relate to poetry? Because I think it does in a strange way I've never really put together in my mind.
Right. I don't know. When I use swear words, I think I use them only because they fit what someone would actually say at that point. I don't use them to be creative, and I'm okay with them. I do know that some people get upset. I've had people complain about Rattle having some swear words, and I have no problem. It's the real world. I think so. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. We try to be poetry of the real world. It's going back a little bit, but David Cook has another question about Bobby's story. He says, in the longer version of Bobby's story, you don't shy away from some of his less likable traits, but we tear up when he dies. Does the poet's eye help you to love the unlikable, obnoxious, and deplorable?
Well, I think, I wouldn't use those words, right? Yeah. But Bobby was my really good friend. I mean, he was a great friend of mine, and we were totally different people. He liked guns. I don't. He was different than me. He didn't read literature. He didn't care about poetry. I had to promise him there wouldn't be any rhyme. It wouldn't be like a real poem type poem. And so I tried to do that. But I want to paint a complete picture of him in that all different sides. So what people say about us matters, and that creates a whole picture. But I loved him. He was my good friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, I go there and we'd sit together and talk every time there was a get together, and we'd chat together. I crossed the boundary and consider him one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Well, we have a few more minutes left. Do you want to read one longer poem or two shorter poems, maybe? I don't know what you have lined up that you'd like to read.
Maybe I could go back to the falling off the Empire State Building
Sure,
if you'd
yeah.
like. Or
Yeah, whatever you want to do. It's totally up to you, but however you want to finish it out.
Actually, I'm not sure. Now, let me try one that I haven't done there. Eudaimonia.
Sure.
This one is another grandma, and this one's a little lighter and more fun poem. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's called Eudaimonia, which means good demon in Greek. It's a Greek word, and laughter was a good demon coming out of your body.
Oh, that's good to know.
Eudaimonia.
Yeah.
Nana laughed in church today. She tilted her head back like a Bugs Bunny Pez dispenser and popped out gold fillings like little yellow lemon bricks of candy. Chrysostome. She stuck out her tongue as if to capture droplets of water from the central dome, her personal contact with the Almighty. The priest halted in the middle of the liturgy. The chanter stopped chanting. The silence ended when the in-re wood block at the top of Jesus' cross fell on the altar. Then icon saints tossed yellow beach ball halos out into the crowd to be tapped around. Father Vakalakis did the Jesus rap as he hip-hopped down the central aisle. He opened the door for the March of the Azones, who strutted through with a synchronized rifle toss to the delight of the cheering congregation. The soldiers lined up at the front of the church, arms around each other, and kicked their legs up in perfect unison, displaying white undergarments to the cries of Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, more, more. Strobe lights whirled. The widow's black clothing turned into rainbows. Everywhere was God, God, God. All of that just to express my Nana laughing in church. She had this laugh that was unbelievably loud. Yeah. And it was just a roar, and she'd laugh anywhere. And she had 11 boys. 2 died young, right? I had there were 9. I had a father and 8 uncles, all boys. And I asked somebody about 11 boys once, and they told me, well, actually, it might have been between 11 and 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it might have been some miscarriages or whatever. I don't know. But and always happy, just enjoyed life. What an inspiration she was.
Yeah, that really is. That generation, that lived through the Great Depression and all that stuff. Just in my experience, everybody has such a joy about life and in a sense of what's important and sense of what we have that we tend to take for granted otherwise. So yeah, I love that poem. Thanks for sharing that, Jimmy.
Yeah, that was a little award winner at a local Poetry Society contest, so that was cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing your work, Jimmy. It's great to meet you in person finally after a couple years of you being an award winner with Rattle. So good to see you in person.
Good to see you, and thank you to everybody that wrote to me and said some nice comments. I really appreciate all that.
Okay, well, thanks, Jimmy. Have a great night, and stay safe.
Okay, bye now.
So that was Jimmy Pappas with his book from the spring mailing of Rattle, falling off the Empire State Building. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you do pick a copy of Scream Wounds as well, there's a link, I think, in the notes below where you can find that on Amazon. Now, I meant to say, and I sort of forgot. One of the housekeeping things I wanted to say is that we're not going to be doing a regular open mic anymore. We're just going to focus on the prompt poems and then have the Poets Respond open mic on Sundays. But since there are people lined up who expected an open mic, this will be like the last episode for a truly open mic. So I'm going to give, we have Doc Janning, Amelio Puerta, and Brian Salmons hoping to call in tonight. Let's see. And Brian Salmon has a link here for me, which I can pull up really quick. So this will be the last truly open mic. From now on, it's just going to be those prompt poems, which are really fun to do. And we have a whole separate show for open mics for anything related whatsoever, even tangentially to current events. So that will be Sunday broadcast, both on Facebook and YouTube, just like these Rattlecasts on Tuesday night are. So I'm going to call it Brian Salmons. Oops, I think hang on one second. Let me do I called him over voice only. Hey, Brian, this is Tim with Rattle. You are on the line in just a second when I pull you in. So X out of your YouTube stream if you haven't yet, and I'll pull you in just 1 second.
Okay.
And you have a great connection compared to Jimmy. So let me shrink you down so you're viewable. Okay, so Brian Salmons, thanks so much. I think you tried to get on last week, but we couldn't have you. Good to see you this week. Thanks for sticking with it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So what do you have for us tonight?
So if I can, I'd like to read 2 short poems that were in the Ekphrastic Review.
Yeah, sure. And I think you sent me the link. Maybe I can pull those. Well, how do I get... Maybe I can't pull those up now. You just have to read them. Let me see.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay. I had to figure out how to use this. Okay. Okay, so I can pull them up now. So I have... let's see. It looks like Laura Ann and her pawpaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is called Laura Ann and her Papaw Brumleaf Eat Bean Soup. Bean soup, white bread, and papaw at the kitchen table. A meal square as quilts and as cozy in a Midwest winter. This reliable place, lined with mosaics and faced with vinyl plaid, its even tenor of surbase and panel laid out like unnumbered townships, the invisible rectitude we settle, is easy to find, easier to mislay. Nothing like a wheated bourbon, the barrels he sold at Stitzel Weller before retiring. The round aroma wafting up from memory, or the bowl before him, scattered when little Laura Ann asked if Papaw also liked dipping bread in soup. He tore the corners from his slice.
Thanks, Brian.
Next up.
Yeah, that was Laura Ann and her pawpaw. Brumleaf Eat Bean Soup, and there's the photo. How does that work with the Ekphrastic Review? I've seen it before, but I don't know exactly how it works. Did they give you that photo, or is it a photo of your own that you?
No, that's a family photo. You write poems based on the thing you want, and you just submit them for her review.
Yeah, so that's your own photo. That's actually Laura Ann and Pawpaw then, huh?
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. And you have another one for us. I can pull that up too really quick. My daughter asks. At the dangerous something.
Yeah. My daughter asks at the Dangerous Woman exhibit. Your essay of the head stripped of his body, eyes lewd, vengeful, the loose caress of his hair on your fist, your body's studied threat, almost answer my daughter's question. Daddy, why are the women naked? You put it differently, with lowered blade, to unbreathing eyes. You wait for him to tender desire as sublime gift again, as second coming, as whatever he wants, when he wants, because he wants.
Thanks so much. That's 2 poems by Brian Simmons from the Ekphrastic Review, which you can find at ekphrastic.net. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Brian. And
no problem.
Yeah, good to see you.
You too.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Okay, let's see. So, let's try. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the prompt poems really quick, and then we'll get to Amelio Puerta and Doc Janning as the last of our truly open mic poets. So, last week's prompt was a girl lying next to a radio. In 1932, the suggestion was a sonnet. Now, once again, I didn't have a chance to write a poem. I'm kind of going crazy trying to read submissions here. I have, like I mentioned earlier in the show, there's maybe 100 to 200 poet response submissions. I have 800 a week that we're going through right now, and I read them all, which is a pleasure. Don't get me wrong, but that takes up a lot of time. And then I also have I'm reading through the this year's Chapbook Prize submissions, and we have to announce the winners on April 15th. So I'm reading chapbooks like all day. I don't have time to write poems. I'm sorry. As much as I would love to be writing, and hopefully soon I'll get back to being engaged with these prompts. But so last week's prompt was a girl lying next to the radio in 1932, and here was Megan's poem, Drawing Pictures Over the Radio. And she's got a long epigram because she wanted to make me read it. She also wanted to say, too, which you should never introduce a poem like this, but she said that she wants everybody to know that she's going crazy as well because she's now a homeschool parent because we have no school. We have our kids are 5 and 9. So in addition to helping me out with Rattle as the assistant editor, she's also learning how to be a homeschooling parent and giving the kids homework and having the kids around all day, every day. So it's really hard for her to write. It's tough times, and it's tough times for everybody, but it's tough times for us too. But we're having fun with it, and I hope you are too. So here's Megan's poem, drawing pictures over the radio with the long epigram that she's making me read. Thousands of radio listeners are joining in on the fun of the latest broadcast novelty, drawing pictures over the radio. The artist in the studio sketches his model in front of the microphone, making the drawing on a chart ruled off into many squares. Radio listeners provide themselves with a similar chart, and when the artist announces that the line he is drawing passes through a certain numbered square, his audience duplicates the line on its own charts. That's from an article from Modern Mechanics, 1932. And here's the poem, a little sonnet from Megan. Pencils against paper makes a hum that floats inside a static sea. Her own between index and thumb, the man clears his throat, says 3B. She begins to map the profile of a woman who might not exist. She traces the odd shape of her smile, puckered as if to be kissed. The nose is right, a perfect incline, but the chin is profound. My flaw or hers, she wonders. Her eyes look like mine. The man calls the last numbers. She looks down at what she's created, a foreign language loosely translated. That was Megan's prompt. Once again, she writes a good poem because she is a good poet. What can you say? We have 2 other good poems, too. Here's Matthew King. Sent one in, and I'm going to have him play it. Here we go. This is Matthew King from, he's a poet who lives near Wollaston Lake in Ontario, Canada. You can also find his nature poetry at birdsandbeesandblooms.com, which I checked out, and it's excellent photography. So I think I just said nature poetry. His nature photography, that's really excellent. So check it out, birdsandbeesandblooms.com. And here's Matthew King reading Postcard from a Girl Lying Next to a Radio in 1932. Oops. Hang on a second. See, with this new computer, how do I get to the next one? There we go. Okay, hang on one second. This is, like I mentioned before, this is a brand new computer. And it didn't work like my old computer did just now. I have to pull this audio up. So here it comes. I'll play it in Windows Meter Player, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Postcard from a girl lying next to a radio in 1932. Paralysis is back. They closed the pool again, the beaches too. I wish I caught it last year. Mom asked Dr. Funk. He thought you only get it once. Then as a rule, you're immune. I don't know, he's wrong a lot. He told her Alice would be back at school last fall. She still can't even walk. It's cool here mornings, but then, holy cow, it's hot. I just lie on the floor sweating all day. Thank God for radio. Say, I'd give Bing a dime or two. That snazzy cat can sing. Miss Georgia Brown, come cool me down. I dream Louie'd take all of me. But if they play Alone Together one more time, I'll scream.
I think that was Matthew King reading his poem Postcard from a Girl Lying Next to a Radio in 1932. A sonnet like we suggested in the prompt. And I just love sonnets, so that was a lot of fun to hear. Good reading and good poem. Thanks, Matthew King. And here's one from Carla Schwartz. Carla's a regular contributor to this. I think she writes a poem pretty much every week, and here she is with her next one. This is Germany, 1931. Germany, July 31st, 1932. Here's Carla Schwartz reading it.
Germany, July 31st, 1932, by Carla Schwartz. The evening was closing over the sunset. The cold dinner served around the table. plus for the baby, pureed vegetables. Seated in her high chair, hand-carved, the baby fiddled with a small wooden rattle while her parents murmured about the election, and 12-year-old Maya drank in the conversation. Then she turned to the radio's soft chatter. Outside their cozy apartment, no neighbors strolled the streets. Maya curled under the radio on the settee, heard Nazi, majority, and looked toward her parents, their teeth clenched tight, their gaze to the west, the sun's final rays swallowed by the night.
And that was Carla Schwartz reading Germany, July 31st, 1932. I just love sonnets. There's a way that they click and they just work so perfectly, and it makes me happy when a sonnet finishes up. Carla Schwartz, who you probably know if you're a watcher of the show, but she's a poet, filmmaker, and photographer, and blogger. Her books include Intimacy with the Wind from Finishing Line Press, and you can find more about her at carlapoet.com. That's Carla with a C. Or find her on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube at CB99 Videos. So thanks so much for sharing that, Carla. Now, next week, and hopefully maybe I'll get to write a poem this week. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to hope. I got my fingers crossed. Every week I have a poem in my head, and then I don't do it. So next week's prompt is: the first word must start with the letter Z. The last word must end with the letter Z. So get out your dictionaries and find a word that starts with Z and let that be your inspiration. That is our prompt for next week, or Megan's prompt for next week. So I'm excited to see what you write and what she writes, and hopefully what I write, because that would be fun if I actually did. Now let's try Doc Janning. And Doc wanted to do an open mic poem. Let's see what Doc has. A lot of times people don't have their ringer on, which I don't either. I have to turn it off so that let's see. So Doc Janning didn't answer the phone. Let me try Amelio Puerta, who I know will answer the phone. He's been on before from another poet from Ontario. I guess we're big in Ontario, Canada. Amelio, hey, how you doing? Hey, yeah, you're on. Let me pull you in, but you're on right here. How you doing? And you're in Toronto, right? I remember right. You are coming in clear, and I now have audio. So, yeah, how you doing tonight?
Good. Trying to stay sane in these times.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And yeah, the whole reason, because I don't know. It's like I've been trying to. Tuesday is like what how do you call this? The motherlode of a poetry event. So I haven't been on in a while here because I've been actually attending events in Toronto.
Uh-huh.
So now since the virus is over here, okay, we can come back. Yay. What's a shame not doing this more. Okay. So here is a poem that we're still in Women's Month, so I thought I'll read my feminine poem.
Okay. Yeah. Is it online anywhere that I can find, or?
Yes, it is. It is. Let me get the link.
Where is it?
It's on my Writers Cafe page.
Okay, I'll try to find it as you start.
What?
I'll try to find it, but you can go ahead.
All right. What I can do is give you the video over Skype. Here's the link.
Okay. Yeah, you can do that. Okay. That's much easier than me Googling. Okay.
Well, it's an actual site, so I don't think you can be able to find it if you Google it.
Yeah, it wasn't coming up. But we have it now. So let's hit us with it.
Feminine. How sweet a sound is feminine. How softly female skips along the ripples of the tongue. and through the supple lips. A simple sigh of feminine, or female, woman, girl, exhales a warm and mystic charm that spurs the soul the whirl. Most masculine is coarse as stone, and decked in monochrome. He squarely stays and keeps his mirth set to a metronome. Armed simply with a copper heart, he tingles skin and bone, and needs the iron feminine to tint and tame his tone. Yet every face of feminine was made from molds of man, as Eve from Adam was conceived, to spark God's holy plan. The feminine is masculine, twice firm, twice fit, twice whole, for underneath the sweet facade lies heart, lies spleen, lies soul.
Very nice. Thanks so much, Amelio. Good to see you again. And as I mentioned before, we're only going to be doing the prompt poems as the open mic at the end, but I hope you do those and join us again sometime soon.
I do, I do those as well too.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see you. Thanks for calling us up. Good night.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was Amelio Puerta, another frequent guest, and we always appreciate those. Let's see. So Judy Mortner asks, where's next week's prompt? And there's next week's prompt again. The first word must start with the letter Z. The last word must end with the letter Z. So it's a very open-ended. A lot of times Megan has had prompts that are sort of theme-based. And you have to pick what you want to do. This time, it's very open-ended. So look at a dictionary, start with the letter Z, and go wherever that takes you, and then finish with the letter Z. That sounds like a fun one. Before we go, I should just say, if you're still watching, please do click the like button. That really helps a lot if you do. And wherever you're watching this, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, or not Facebook or Twitter, YouTube or Facebook. And I think I'm going to start broadcasting this on Twitter too, through Periscope, simulcasting that way too, because I might as well, now that I have a really cool computer. Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995, and we are unaffiliated with any other organization. We don't ask for money or anything like that, even though we're a nonprofit. All we ask is that you enjoy and share poetry, because that's one of the really important things that's sort of missing in this world these days. And if you like this, I'm glad. That's all I have to say. Next week on the Rattlecast, we have Wendy Barker, who is a favorite around here with her new book, Gloss. Her other book is One Blackbird at a Time that came out recently, which I just loved, about teaching. And this is her new book, Gloss, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. But Wendy Barker is a great poet. We published her in about maybe 5 issues of Rattle. And it should be a really fun episode, so hope you join us then. It's Tuesday, March 31st, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Eastern. And also we have, as always, the Critique of the Week on Facebook. I think I'm going to stick to just having that on Facebook rather than simulcasting it, so we can have the comments all in one place. But we go over a poem every week on Facebook, and it's a lot of fun. And on Sunday now, we have the Open Mic Show, which is simulcast both on YouTube and Facebook for Poets Respond. So if you write any current events, poems, you can just go to rattle.com/respond for more information and to read the weekly poems we have there. Right now, every single poem in the world is about the coronavirus. But if you want to write about something else, feel free to, and submit it to Poets Respond, and join us for the open mic and share it, even if it's not one of the poems out of maybe 1,000 this week that I will be selecting. But it's a lot of fun doing the open mic show, and I hope you join us for that too. It's even more casual than this, if you can believe it. But I had a good time on Sunday, and I think everybody watching had a good time too. So join us then at the same place on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Now, I guess that's all for now. So have a great week. Stay safe. I'll see you Friday or Sunday or next Tuesday with Wendy Barker. Have a good one. Good night.